Hey everyone, I'm Vladimir Dutier. We are watching all the news happening in the United States and around the world. Check out these monitors behind me. You know by now what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you that these are feeds coming into the CBS News Broadcast Center from all of our stations and affiliates around the country. So if it's happening out there, we're going to bring it to you live right here in Studio 55. Let's begin. Another fire emergency around Los Angeles as new wildfires tear through the area and explode in size. We're going to go there live. And President Trump is giving new orders to crack down on immigration, and he's planning on using the military to do it. We're going to break down his latest policies regarding the southern border. All right, here we go again. California firefighters are up against yet another wildfire in addition to the cluster of fires already burning in and around Los Angeles. The Sepulveda fire erupted in Sherman Oaks overnight, and crews are battling the Hughes Fire, which was sparked yesterday. That's in addition to the deadly Palisades and Eaton wildfires that have been burning for more than 2 weeks. The fast-moving flames prompted evacuation warnings in the area. Listen.
I said, okay, let me get up. So I got up and went to the backyard, and I could see already like the red flames on the other side of the hill. So it was very scary. I woke up everybody, and we just started gathering stuff. Yeah, I don't understand what's happening. We can't get a break.
CBS News reporter Andreas Gutierrez is live from Santa Clarita at a command center just north of L.A. Andreas, firefighters are telling you that they were able to get ahead of the Sepulveda fire overnight. How were they able to do that, and what's the progress so far this morning?
Well, they have made an aggressive firefighting effort from on the ground and in the air, and it's burned 40 acres thus far, but it quickly grew from 10 acres overnight. It broke out there near the Getty Center and the 405. 25-mile-per-hour winds helped drive that fire and those Santa Ana winds. It's why we are still in a red flag warning through tomorrow morning. At this point, they were able to get 250 firefighters from the Los Angeles Fire Department to put out the flames on the ground. Yes, the Bel Air and Brentwood neighborhoods were under evacuation orders, but 3 hours after that fire broke out, they were able to lift those evacuation warnings because they were able to stop the forward progress of that fire. So right now, they have a very good handle on that fire.
All right, let me ask you about first responders that are also fighting these other flames. Are there enough resources to go around for the response? In other words, you got the Eaton Fire, Palisades, and now these.
Yeah, for these fires that broke out, the Hughes Fire and the Sepulveda Fire, absolutely. Here in the Hughes Fire, where we're at just 50 miles north of Los Angeles, there are about 4,000 firefighters right now that are trying to contain this fire from growing. Thus far here, more than 10,000 acres have burned, but luckily no structures have been damaged, which is surprising given the scale of this fire. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that a lot of these firefighters were staged. They were positioned to be ready on the standby in case fires broke out. So yesterday, it broke out as a small brush fire up here in the Passaic Lake area, 50 acres, and then within 2 hours, it grew to 5,000 acres. But they were able quickly to move in all these firefighters that were on standby, both in the air and on the ground, and they were able to start getting a good fire line going around this. And as you said, there's also the resources that came from out of state and in some cases from out of the country, from Mexico and Canada, that are still here in providing mutual aid to the California firefighters. And so they were able to mobilize resources. And so besides the winds not being so strong yesterday, they were also able to deploy these firefighters pretty quickly to get ahead of these fires.
All right, Andreas Gutierrez for us this morning. Andreas, thank you very much. Let us bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with the first look at the national forecast. Hey, Grant.
Hey, Vlad, yeah, keeping a close eye on those conditions over Southern California today. Still gusty, but maybe not as bad as they were yesterday, even though they weren't as bad as expected. Still looking at the potential for some wind gusts today between 70 to 80 miles per hour. Those relative humidity readings between 5 to 15%. So the combination between those things and the ongoing fires and just the continually dry conditions across Southern California, critical fire danger across the area today. Let me show you the forecast wind gusts as we go throughout our Thursday. 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts west up towards Santa Clarita. Somewhere in the higher elevations, we could see those gusts approaching 70 to maybe even 75 miles per hour. But you see through tomorrow afternoon, those wind speeds will begin to die down. Not only are we looking at a reduction in those wind speeds, but an increased chance of not just moisture, but how about some rain over Southern California? We need it for sure. Look at this forecast as we go through the weekend. Showers moving into Southern California, hanging around for a couple of days. Now, some places could get some locally heavy rainfall, and that may amount into some rainfall totals there around a ½ inch to an inch of rain. That may result in some landslides, something that we'll have to watch really closely through the weekend into early next week. Vlad, back to you.
All right, Grant, thank you. In just a few hours, a federal judge in Seattle will hold a hearing on a bid to block President Trump's order to revoke birthright citizenship in the U.S. The case was brought by attorneys general in Washington, Arizona, Illinois, and Oregon. I'm going to bring in CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camila Montoya Galvez for more. So Camila, just so people understand, what is the president suggesting? Because the Constitution of the United States is crystal clear when it comes to the 14th Amendment. I think there's a lot of stuff flying out there, and I think that people need to understand exactly what's at stake here and what the president's powers are and what they are not.
Good morning, Vlad. Soon after taking office on Monday, President Trump took this unprecedented measure to try to upend and really terminate the long-standing interpretation of the U.S. Constitution, which has long been interpreted to mean, Vlad, as you mentioned, that people who are born here on American soil, in most cases at least, are automatically U.S. citizens, American citizens at birth. But in his order, he is trying to deny birthright citizenship to the children of people who are in the country illegally, Vlad, as well as those who are here on temporary visas, such as tourists or travelers. And it is really important to note that Mr. Trump gave federal agencies like the State Department 30 days, a pretty quick time frame to implement this order and to start denying passports and other documents of citizenship to children who are born in these circumstances. However, it is unclear whether that actual edict and order will take effect because, as you know, legal challenges have already been filed against this executive action by President Trump. Not only have a group of Democratic-led states filed lawsuit in federal courts across the country against this edict, but so have advocates across the country who say that this tramples on the U.S. Constitution and that it should be struck down in court.
Right. And CBS News has exclusively learned, as you know, Camila, that U.S. border agents have been instructed to deport migrants crossing into the country illegally without allowing them to request legal protection. What do those government documents indicate is the reasoning behind this? Because, and again, people should understand what we're suggesting here. No one is suggesting that undocumented immigrants should just flow into the country without any sort of checks and balances. But there is a legal mechanism in place for people to request asylum, and that is across the board from any country that feels that where a person feels that they need to legally request that asylum. So explain that for our viewers.
Sure. So on Monday, in addition to issuing that order on birthright citizenship and trying to terminate that interpretation of the Constitution, the president also issued another major executive action, Vlad, that suspended the entry of all asylum seekers and migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border and the U.S.-Canada border on the grounds that he believes they are orchestrating and staging an invasion of the U.S. and that they also could pose a threat to national security, public safety, or public health. And so this is a sweeping order that he is invoking under his constitutional powers and an immigration law known as 212F that allows presidents to suspend and bar the entry of foreigners if he deems that their entry is detrimental to U.S. interests. What does that mean? Well, we have learned that Border Patrol has been instructed to adhere to these orders by essentially summarily and quickly deporting most migrants without allowing them to have a chance to request asylum. And that is a major change because, as you alluded to, Vlad, under U.S. domestic and international refugee law, the U.S. typically has had an obligation to at least screen and interview people who say that they could be persecuted if deported back to their home countries or to the place of deportation like Mexico. that obligation, Vlad, has now been effectively suspended under this edict by President Trump, and these migrants can be summarily deported from the country without any sort of asylum screening.
Really quickly, Camilla, because we have to run, but I just want to understand something. Does that mean it's across the board? In other words, if somebody's requesting asylum, for example, from Ukraine, or somebody is requesting asylum from Denmark or Cuba, are those same, is this enforced for anyone requesting political asylum or economic asylum?
This only applies to people who are crossing the U.S.-Mexico border and the U.S.-Canada border, as well as coastal sectors. It does not apply to people, Vlad, who are already here on American soil before the order took effect. And it also does not apply to people who enter the country legally on a temporary visa, for example, and then request asylum.
Got it. All right. Camila Montoya Galvez for us this morning. Thank you very much for that clarity. Appreciate it. The founders of the far-right group, the Oath Keepers, visited Capitol Hill yesterday, where he met with House Republicans. Stuart Rhodes was pardoned by President Trump for his involvement in the January 6th Capitol riots. Yesterday, he lobbied for a pardon for another Oath Keeper. I want to bring in CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes for the very latest. Nancy, the president defended his choice to pardon rioters like Rhodes in an interview with Sean Hannity on Fox News. What was the explanation that he gave?
He gave a few different explanations, Vlad. First of all, he argued that a lot of these violent protesters were actually only responsible for what he called minor incidents. And while that is true in some cases, we know just from watching the video that there were plenty of people who were involved in incidents that you would not describe as minor because they were beating or macing police officers. He also argued that these individuals were simply exercising their First Amendment rights at the Capitol that day and therefore should not be punished. Take a listen.
They were protesting the vote because they knew the election was rigged and they were protesting the vote. And that you should be allowed to protest a vote.
One other argument he made in that interview, Vlad, and we've heard it before, is that these rioters have already had their lives turned upside down, that they have already served plenty of time. Again, which is true in some cases, but not in others. There are still individuals who are going through the system or who have only recently been convicted and were only starting to serve their time when he pardoned them.
Yeah, it was striking to hear the head of the Capitol Police in that interview with Norah O'Donnell suggesting that he believes that officers and, in fact, the American people are at risk, given that some of these folks have been released. Let me ask you about the president's virtual address, Nancy, to the World Economic Forum in Davos. What is the message he's hoping to send?
Well, we haven't gotten a preview yet, Vlad, but I can tell you that a lot of the leaders that are assembled there are going to be listening very carefully to whatever he has to say about the tariffs that he has promised to impose on all goods coming into the country. They want to know more about that, when he plans to do it, whether he truly plans to do it, that sort of thing. They'll also be listening to hear what he has to say about various global conflicts like Ukraine, like Gaza. It was pretty eye-opening when he posted yesterday threatening Russia that if it didn't come to a swift agreement with Ukraine about ending that war, that he might impose tough new sanctions and tariffs on Russia. He doesn't threaten Russia very often, so it was notable. We'll see if he has anything more to say about that today.
We'll see. All right, Nancy Cordes for us at the White House this morning. Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Police are looking into some disturbing writings and online posts reportedly left behind by a school shooter in Nashville. We'll have the details next. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. 7 police officers are recovering this morning after being shot last night in San Antonio, Texas. The suspected shooter was found dead after an hours-long standoff. CBS News correspondent Jason Allen is following the developments from Texas. So, Jason, break down what happened.
Yeah, good morning, Vlad. So as you mentioned, 7 police officers shot. This started with a call that came in about a possible suicide in progress. That's the way that the police chief referenced this. This call came into police from a family member, but the first officer that arrived at this apartment complex on the north side of the city, the police chief said that first officer was shot. And then as the police chief's on his way to the scene, then it's 3 officers who are shot, and then a 4th officer who is shot. Now, at the time, the police chief said all of those first 4 officers had non-life-threatening injuries. Eventually,
This gets up to 7. And the Texas Municipal Police Association said today none of those officers, thankfully, are in critical condition. There was a witness there at the apartment complex that did tell our CBS station there in San Antonio that he saw officers applying a tourniquet to one of the officers who was shot and then dragging him away from the scene. Now, you mentioned he was barricaded inside of this apartment. Police did eventually breach the front door. They went through a window. There was tear gas that was used. And when SWAT officers did eventually get inside of that apartment, Vlad, they found that man, that shooter, was dead. They don't know at this point if this was because the officers had been firing or shooting back or if this was a self-inflicted gunshot wound, Vlad.
So do you know anything about the shooter at this point?
We do know a little bit. The police chief's given us a little bit of background on him. This is a man who was in his 40s, and he had been arrested fairly recently. In fact, 5 days ago, police said that they had arrested him, charged him with 3 crimes. There was a couple of assault charges. There was a DWI charge as well, but the investigation's ongoing to see if any of that is connected to what happened in San Antonio last night.
All right, Jason Allen for us in Texas this morning. Jason, thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate it. And investigators are also looking into a shooting at a high school in Nashville, Tennessee. The gunman killed one student and tragically wounded another before he took his own life. And police are looking at this disturbing social media trail that includes a live stream of the crime. Incredibly disturbing stuff. CBS News reporter Nicole Valdez has the latest from Antioch High School.
Good morning. Well, classes here at Antioch High School are canceled for the rest of the week as parents, students, and teachers mourn the loss of a 16-year-old girl killed inside the cafeteria. The shooter, a 17-year-old fellow classmate who brought a pistol to the school yesterday and opened fire in the middle of the school day. Police say they're still trying to figure out what may have motivated this violent attack, and they say they're looking into online writings and social media posts made by the shooter that reference far-right extremist views and past school shooters. Now, school officials here say they did have several security measures in place, including school resource officers, security cameras, and weapon detection systems. But unfortunately, we did still see this situation play out. We know that this is an active investigation, but unfortunately, as you can imagine, a lot of questions still here for community in mourning. Back to you.
All right, Nicole, thank you very much. President Trump has warned Vladimir Putin he'll impose tariffs and more sanctions on Russia if it does not reach an agreement to end the war in Ukraine. In a post to Truth Social yesterday, Trump urged Putin to, quote, settle now and stop this ridiculous war, or he'll put high levels of taxes, tariffs, and sanctions on items sold by Russia. Joining us now from the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv is CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams. Holly, these kinds of threats, are they likely to bring Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table?
Good morning, Vlad. Well, interestingly, the Kremlin's actually already responded to that post from President Trump, saying that it's, quote, nothing new. And that's probably not very surprising, given that Russia is already isolated economically and politically from the West by existing sanctions. Look, here I think is the bigger picture. On the one hand, Russia is currently making gains on the battlefield here in Ukraine. But on the other, a lot of military observers believe that this war has been a humiliation for Vladimir Putin, a war that he started by invading Ukraine. So Russia has suffered a string of embarrassing failures here on the battlefield. The second or third most powerful military in the world supposedly has only succeeded in taking around 20% of Ukraine's territory, and Russia has suffered hundreds of thousands of casualties. So yes, maybe at this point, Vladimir Putin would be super willing to sit down with the President of the United States at a summit meeting and find a face-saving way out of this conflict. Here in Ukraine, more and more people are open to negotiations, open to a ceasefire. But the fear is that Vladimir Putin could use negotiations, use a ceasefire to buy time, rebuild his military, and then renege on any deal and reinvade Ukraine.
Wow. All right. So speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos on Tuesday, as you know, Holly, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said at least 200,000 European peacekeepers would be needed to stop new Russian attacks under any ceasefire deal that the two come to an agreement over, what more can you tell us about what else Ukraine is saying that it needs?
Well, look, Vlad, there was a recent poll here in Ukraine that just found that just over half of Ukrainians would like to negotiate a ceasefire. That is up dramatically since the beginning of the war in 2022. And it's not surprising given the horrors that people have lived through here over the last 3 years or so. But Ukraine is adamant that there cannot be a ceasefire without security guarantees for Ukraine, whether that is NATO membership, whereby the US and other countries would have to come to Ukraine's defense if it was attacked, whether it's peacekeepers or some other measures. Also, many Ukrainians have said to us that no matter what happens, they need a continuing supply of American weapons to defend themselves because they do not trust Vladimir Putin to stick to any deal that he agrees to. So look, at least some Ukrainians would like to negotiate, would like a ceasefire, but the devil is going to be in the details. Vlad.
All right, Holly Williams for us from Kyiv this morning. Thank you, Holly. Okay, Amanda Knox is making a final attempt to clear her name. What we know about the appeal before Italy's highest court today. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Here's a look at some of the top stories we're following for you this morning. Rapper Sean Diddy Combs has filed a $50 million defamation lawsuit against a man who claims to have sex tapes of Combs with other celebrities. And those tapes could implicate Combs in sexual assault. Combs' lawyers say the man is fabricating the story and stirring up baseless speculation. Combs has pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking charges and is awaiting trial. Amanda Knox is taking one final shot at clearing her name. Today, Italy's highest court will decide whether or not to overturn her slander conviction. You'll recall that Knox was tried for the murder of her roommate, but she and her then boyfriend were eventually cleared of all the charges in 2015. In 2007, during a police interrogation, Knox falsely accused a Congolese bar owner of killing the girl. The lawyers say she was forced to point the finger because she was questioned for hours. And in Thailand, the country's first legal same-sex marriages were performed today. The country legalized same-sex marriage last year, but today is the day that the law went into effect. Bangkok Pride says the number of couples tying the knot is expected to surpass 1,400, and they're asking Guinness World Records to recognize these unions as the world's largest number of same-sex marriages in a single day. Strong winds are a major threat to firefighters in Southern California as they try to snuff out new wildfires. The Sepulveda fire exploded in Sherman Oaks overnight, and the Hughes Fire started yesterday. Meanwhile, the deadly Palisades and Eaton wildfires have been burning for more than 2 weeks. Earlier on CBS Mornings, the LA County fire captain explained her team's strategy.
Our concerns is, again, just the continual fight. The winds are supposed to pick up again, throughout the morning. But with the upper hand that we got on this fire, we'll be able to really beat it back off the fire line. Our biggest concern and asset was that neighborhood in Castaic, where we were able to keep that front from moving into that area. We definitely have plenty of water, plenty of resources. We're well over 4,000 personnel on this fire. We've got the reservoir right there we can dip out of and draft out of. The difference on these fires, we're sitting at 35, 40 mile an hour winds in this Castaic fire. I was on the Palisades fire that first night, and I had wind gusts up 80 to 100 miles an hour, and they were relentless. So that's a different fight altogether. It's like fighting a hurricane with fire attached to it.
We'll continue to monitor those fast-moving flames and the efforts to fight them throughout the morning. Meanwhile, let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with another look at the national forecast. Hey, Grant.
Hey, Vlad, look, we've been really cold across the eastern two-thirds of the United States for the last week or so, and that actually is what gave the cold air for that storm system that produced all the snow that is still in place across the Gulf states up into the Carolinas. Put it on the map here. We've got all of our snow cover in addition to our current temperatures. Look down towards Houston, temperatures right on 37 degrees. So beginning to see some of that melting of that snow that still extends all across the Gulf states and then up into the Carolinas this morning as well, where places like Wilmington and Raleigh are starting the day with temperatures in the 20s. But that Arctic air, while it is retreating to the north, there is still some bitterly cold air. Look up towards International Falls, where temperatures are well below zero. We will see some moderation in those temperatures as we make our way through the next couple of days into the week. It's still a bitterly cold start. In fact, still the eastern 2/3 of the United States going to have chilly conditions across the entire region today. Meanwhile, dry conditions. We'll talk about Southern California in just a minute. Dry and gusty conditions across Southern California today. LA sees a high temperature around 75 degrees. But that Arctic air will begin to retreat back to the north. We'll still see some below freezing temperatures up towards the northeast. Philadelphia around 30 in the afternoon. But notice how temperatures across the south. Look at Tampa. 50s today and tomorrow, and then we'll see 60s by Saturday, back into the 70s by Sunday. Still pretty cold up towards Minneapolis, with temperatures staying in the 20s over the next few days, but temperatures at least a little closer to normal. Southern California still underneath that critical fire danger today, with wind gusts near 80 miles per hour, but we are looking forward to some rain to bring some relief as we head through the weekend. Vlad, back to you.
All right, Grant, thank you very much. It may be bitterly cold today, but it's a busy day on Capitol Hill, and another handful of the president picks for his cabinet are either appearing under or consideration for confirmation. It includes potentially key votes on two very important picks for U.S. national security. Would be CIA Chief John Ratcliffe and Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. CBS News political reporter Torian Small joins us live from the Hill now to talk about this. So who else is under consideration this morning, Torian?
Yeah, Vlad, I got my head on a swivel because we're getting a bit of breaking news, but we know Doug Collins, former congressman from Georgia, now Trump's pick to head the Veteran Affairs Department, was voted out of committee by a pretty bipartisan vote, 18-1, just one defector Democrat there. Lee Zeldin, a congressman from New York, tapped ahead. The EPA was also voted out of committee, according to the Republicans there on the Environmental Committee, 11-8. And then Eric Turner, former football player, NFL star, tapped by President Trump to lead the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We'll also see his nomination go through committee vote to ultimately head to the floor. That's the process here. After it's voted out of committee, it's certainly on its way to a floor vote. Where it goes from there is to be seen, but it looks like Republicans have the votes for all three of those candidates there, and it's likely that they'll be confirmed sooner than later.
Later today, as you know, Torian, the Senate will hold cloture votes on two other big picks, CIA Chief and Defense Secretary. What can you tell us about the process there?
Yeah, it's a complicated, but then not so complicated process. Democrats are using the filibuster, so a 2/3 majority is needed to pass through certain legislation, some confirmations. So Democrats are holding the line because they know that Republicans just don't have the numbers there to slow down this process. This cloture vote essentially overrides that, meaning that they would only need a simple majority for these confirmations to go through. We're seeing that for Ratcliffe, like you mentioned, and then also for Pete Hegseth, Trump's pick to head the Department of Defense. A controversial pick there, especially considering the fact that just a few days ago, his former sister-in-law, Danielle Hegseth, released this affidavit to the committee overseeing his confirmation, detailing some pretty serious allegations of abuse and public drunkenness, abuse of alcohol, I should say. Many of those Pete Hegseth and his attorney has denied. It doesn't appear that that is stymieing any support among Republicans, though we are watching Senators Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collin, who have expressed reservations about Pete Hegseth. The magic number here, though, is 3 to 4. It doesn't appear that there are 4 defectors yet that are willing to block Hegseth's vote.
All right, Torian Small for us on the Hill. Thank you, Torian. President Trump launched his own cryptocurrency, the meme coin, and it's already worth billions. But crypto insiders and legal experts are sounding the alarm. We're going to tell you why. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Days before his return to the White House, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump each launched their own cryptocurrency coin. The combined valuation of the coins reached $9.5 billion on Inauguration Day. Trump says the coin celebrates, quote, winning. I want to bring in Wall Street Journal markets reporter Vicky Huang for more on this. Vicky, we haven't seen U.S. presidents launch their own coin, their own cryptocurrency. First of all, what's the reaction in the crypto industry over this coin?
Hi, Vlad. Thank you for having me. And yes, indeed, this is unprecedented for a U.S. president to launch a meme coin, a type of cryptocurrency that serves no economic purpose and are created essentially just to generate a few laughs from the internet community. And as you can expect, when the president launches this type of cryptocurrency, the feelings from the crypto community are quite mixed. Some people are very happy, overjoyed, because to them, this means that the president really believes in the crypto industry, and the next 4 years is probably going to be great for the crypto industry, and more users are going to learn about crypto and join the crypto world. However, for others, the serious crypto executives, investors who have really been trying to build an image that this is a serious industry like tech and finance, they're quite disheartened because the president's action kind of shows that, it's true that crypto perhaps is a lot about speculation and trading frenzy and a lot of things that they don't want the image of the industry to be.
Yeah, because you know that the president has expressed his desire to turn the United States into the cryptocurrency capital of the world. Is that realistic? And for people to understand, because I know that there are a lot of people, like, for example, my mom doesn't understand what cryptocurrencies are, because for them, understanding their concept of currency is that the paper money that they use to buy groceries and to pay their bills is backed not only by the full faith and credit of the United States, but that there's an inherent promise that you will receive the value of that paper money. Explain to people who are sort of wondering, I mean, in the case of this Trump coin, what are the tangible assets behind it? What is the value of the Trump coin other than the president himself, his personality?
Yes, you really nailed it there. For this particular cryptocurrency, because it is a meme coin, there is really no value behind it except the brand of the president, the name recognition and celebrity of the president, because meme coins themselves are not meant to have any value. They are created to be part of the internet culture, to generate a few laughs. For example, the most popular and well-known meme coin is perhaps Dogecoin, and it's just based on the image of a Shiba Inu dog. And it was popularized by the Tesla chief Elon Musk, but can you really use these meme coins to buy anything in the real world? Not really. And does the value of it go up over the long term? So far, it has because of this market euphoria. However, there's no serious business model or anything behind the token. So we really just don't know how these meme coins are going to play out over the long term. Some people have said that the meme coin President Trump is probably going to be the one big exception just because he is the president.
And quickly, Vicki, so the money raised from the sale of this meme coin, that just flows into the president's bank account, right?
So far, the president and the Trump organization haven't really commented in details about the launch of this meme coin. President Trump has said that he heard about it, he heard it was successful, but he doesn't really know much about it. When a reporter asked him about this meme coin that generated billions of trading volume and amassed billions of market cap in just a few days. However, we do know that the organizations behind the meme coin are affiliates of the Trump organization. So that much we know. And they own 80% of the entire supply of the token.
Aha, got it. All right. Vicki Wong for us from the Wall Street Journal. Thank you, Vicki. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. American farmers are bracing for some big changes under President Trump's new immigration policy. The future is uncertain in that industry that relies heavily on migrant labor. Nearly half of America's farm workers are thought to be undocumented. And Nancy Chen spoke with some farmers to find out how it could become even more difficult for them to stay in business.
It takes a lot of hands to hand harvest fruits and vegetables.
Talk to any farmer and they'll tell you it's difficult work.
Yeah. This is a 24-hour job. So I need people who are willing to work in shifts at different times of the day.
But it's hard to find those people.
Yeah.
American farms are on the decline. There was a 7% drop in farms from 2017 to 2022, according to the USDA. That's about 142,000 fewer farms in just 5 years. These days, farmers are up against bird flu outbreaks, higher costs for feed and fertilizer, and climate change. But their livelihoods depend on a reliable workforce. And now they're concerned about how President Trump's campaign promise to launch the largest deportation effort in American history will play out. Immigration taking center stage from day one.
First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border.
About 2/3 of crop workers are foreign-born. And while many come to the U.S. for seasonal jobs legally through H-2A visas, the USDA estimates that 42% of crop laborers are undocumented. New Jersey farmer Kurt Alstead says his workers are all legally authorized, but he's watching closely to see what Trump does next.
When we talk about the ripple effects of a potential mass deportation, labor is already hard enough to find as is. Could it be even more difficult to find across the board if that does happen?
Well, there's no question in the United States we have a shrinking workforce. Anything that happens from a policy standpoint that reduces people in our workforce is going to make it very difficult for industry, and certainly for agriculture. We would be in big trouble if we lost workforce.
The labor union, United Farm Workers, has already seen an uptick in migrants asking for help.
The threats are scary, but at the same time, farm workers more than anyone understand the reality that without them, this work is not going to get done.
And fewer workers could mean less homegrown produce, according to University of Montana economist Diane Charlton.
But will consumers see higher prices if there are these mass deportations?
Maybe to a certain extent, consumers might not see a really big impact in the grocery stores, but there will be less domestically grown fruits and vegetables.
Does that mean more farms could go belly up?
Definitely.
Nate Chittenden, a third-generation New York dairy farmer, says his industry needs change.
We all want safe, affordable food in this country. We all realize that people that work hard deserve a chance to improve their lives. You know, we have to figure out what we can do to make that happen without breaking the system.
All right, let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with the last look at the national forecast.
Hey, Vlad, so look, we're waiting for that snow to melt across the deep south. That may take a couple more days, but temperatures at least warming. Still pretty chilly across the north and some snow moving across the Great Lakes. Out west, it's dry for now, windy and fire conditions across Southern California, but some rain is in the forecast for Southern California as we head through Friday night into the weekend. Looking forward to that to bring some relief to the desperate fire conditions out there. Vlad, back to you.
Grant, thank you very much. We'll talk to you tomorrow. That does it for me, folks, but stay right where you are. After the break, Elizabeth Cook, live from San Francisco. This